Hello, welcome back to Teacher Jeff 40K. So I've started to do unit reviews again. I've decided I want to do two at a time. I'm going to do an old one or a rehashing now that the new codex has come out, all sorts of points have dropped. I'm going back to some of the oldest units that I've looked at because the videos are horrendously out of date now, or not horrendously out of date, but just quite out of date in terms of points, applicability, chapter tactics, what have you. So I'm going back. I'm going to be releasing an old or a redone unit analysis along with one of the new units. So ideally, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about Sterngard veterans. And then in the video that I'll be releasing with this, I'm also going to talk about the Invictor Warsuit. So I'm going to be doing two at once. One to sort of, I guess, clear out some of the skeletons in the closet, and another one to show some of the new stuff and what that can do, whether I have the models or not, because I'm not the type of guy to as soon as a new model is released for the Army, go out and buy a bunch. There are a few. I sort of bide my time. I want to wait to see what happens, maybe proxy some things first. I highly recommend that as well for new players or veteran players as well. The new stuff always looks cool, and it's always going to be good as Games Workshop releases it, because of course they want to sell it. So I would say just be patient. And if you play with a community of people who don't really care about proxies, then it shouldn't be a problem. You can test something out. I mean, the Invictor Warsuit is virtually the same size as a Dreadnought, so you could just kind of proxy that and see how you like it. Anyhow, this video I'd like to talk about Sterngard veterans. For some of the people who've seen my channel or looked through it for a while, some of this information will not be new to you, or some of my opinions or what I think of these guys will not be new to you, but it's also going to include some updates, especially as it comes to the new codex, stratagems, new chapter tactics, and points cost as well, and how applicable they are in the game now versus when I made the first video with Sterngard veterans. Geez, I don't know, almost 2 years ago, I guess. So let's have a look, shall we? Now, I have brought out my Sterngard veterans here, so hopefully you can see them very well. So most of these, again, if you've seen my previous video, you've probably seen these before, or maybe I've put them together in a list of some kind to illustrate that. So I've got 10 veterans right here. This is not necessarily how I'm recommending you load them out. I'm just using this as an example. So I've got a sergeant. He has a chainsword. I've got a couple of guys with plasma guns, and then the rest of them have the special issue bolt guns. So what I wanted to do and why I wanted to show you these guys is because, let me try and get this centered here. There we go. So the reason I'm showing this to you like this is because I wanted to demonstrate that for new players to the game, or existing players, maybe you have a different army, you don't need to buy the Sterngard veteran kit. In fact, it's quite expensive for what you get. So what I've done here is I have used tactical Marines. I've used just regular Marine bodies from either the tactical squad kit or the command squad kit. I mean, any Marines you find are going to be able to have parts interchangeable with them. Now, this means that you can make your own veterans effectively, because Sterngard veterans are Space Marines, just they've been around for a little longer, they have a little more combat experience, and they have some different weaponry available to them. So they have a special issue bolt gun as their standard piece of equipment. Now, one thing I will note though, if you decide to use standard Marine kits, which are much cheaper than the Sterngard veteran kit, make sure that there's some way that you can differentiate these guys from the rest of your Marines. So in my army, I've painted them a different color. My Marines all look like this. They're relatively green and bright. And then my veterans are this sort of steel color, steel and black. And another thing I've done as well is with a lot of the rifles, I've added customization. So this guy, I've added a stock and a suppressor, or where's a good example? I've got a few here. Here we go. So this guy's bolt gun, I've added a couple things like a scope, a laser sight, something like that, just to sort of separate them from the regular bolter carrying Marines so that one, it's easier for you to know what you're doing, but also for your opponent as well. And it doesn't feel like you're just using regular tactical Marines. And then I'd say maybe add some stuff as well, like add some of the extra little purity seals that you're going to get 4 million of in every box of Marines that you buy. I usually just leave them off most of my Marines and then wait and attach a few of them to these guys so it looks like they've earned some sort of battle honors. I make sure I give them all the equipment available. I attach all the grenades and everything like that, pistols, extra stuff attached to them, that sort of thing. Or if I do any customizations like this guy's bionic leg. So that one I put together with some tank parts. So it turned him into a veteran as well. So as long as you're able to differentiate, it's okay. Because as it stands now, the Sterngard veteran kit for 5 models is $60 Canadian. So I'm pretty sure it's about 50 US. And I don't even know how to convert to the pound. I'm imagining last time I checked the pound was almost double the Canadian dollar. So it's probably like 30 pounds or something like that for the kit, which is hefty. So for 5 models, that's the thing. It's 5 models. Now, I will say this. Some of the parts you get in the Sterngard kit are very nice. You get some very cool special issue bolt guns. So they're bolt guns that look a little special compared to the regular bolt guns. So if we take, for example, I've got a bolt gun guy over here. You know, this guy's pretty stock standard. He's got a bolt gun. There's a little bullet hanging from the front of it, but that's it. And then the Sterngard kit, you'll have, you know, they'll look engraved. They'll have special magazines, that sort of thing, to make sure that you can tell they're special issue bolt guns. There's a bunch of them. And then they have combi weapons as well in the kit, and lots of combi weapons. So those are useful. It's also one of the few kits that has a heavy flamer in it, a handheld heavy flamer, because as it stands, the Sterngard veterans are the only ones who can take heavy flamers, unless you're Blood Angels. But we're talking about basic Marines here, or standard Marines anyways. So the Sterngard kit is, I'm not going to say it's worth it because it's not. It does have some really cool stuff in it though. It's got some very cool stuff, very cool weapons, loadouts, that sort of thing. Unfortunately though, all of the veterans automatically have that skirt on, which is, I'm not really a fan of that. I don't like the robes over power armor. I've never been a fan of that aesthetic. So, and you don't really have a choice. Like all the torsos and bodies come with the attached, like it looks like a kilt that they're putting on over their power armor. So you don't really get a choice in that, which I don't like so much. So I decided to make my own Marines, and also I'm cheap as hell, so I didn't want to spend $60 on a 5-man kit. Instead, you can spend $50 on a 10-man kit of tactical Marines and just have some fun customizing them. I've also used parts from the, what's it called? Command Squad box, which is actually a very cool box. It's a little, I think it's $42, so it's not that expensive. It's still only 5 guys, but you get some interesting pieces in there. If you want to make some veterans or an apothecary or a standard bearer, you get a whole bunch of stuff in there to make some different characters, which is nice. Now, for the Sterngard veterans, let's dig into the rules. So, They come with a veteran profile. Now, what that means is they're basically a tactical Marine, but they get an extra attack and their leadership is higher. Now, that more than ever is super important when it comes to the attacks. Let me just find the page here. I'll get it open. Sterngard. There we go. So yes, movement 6 inches, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 attacks for each guy, and then 3 attacks for the sergeant. Leadership 8 or 9 for the sergeant, and then 3 up save. So standard Marine, but higher leadership and more attacks. But with Marines now getting +1 attack on the charge when they're charged, and if any of them heroically intervene, although these guys are not characters, so they'll not be heroically intervening, but +1 attack, it means that 2 base attacks are quite good. Sterngard veterans are not exactly the guys you want to have in combat, but they'll dish out some pain. They will. So you'll get 2 attacks per guy, or 3, if they get charged or if you do the charging. So they're not bad at dealing out a few attacks. And the Sterngard sergeant has an option to replace his bolt pistol. So you don't have to replace his really good shooting weapon, his special issue bolt gun. You can replace his bolt pistol with a chainsword, giving him 1 more attack, which means he gets the 3 for being a sergeant, he gets 1 for having a chainsword, and then if he's charged, or he charges, he gets 5 attacks. That's 5 attacks coming out of a regular Marine, or a veteran Marine anyways. So the standard unit size is 5, and then you can have up to 10 in the squad. Pretty standard. You get the 1 sergeant, and then 4 Marines, and then you can add 5 more Marines to the Sterngard squad. It's power level 6 if you're playing with power level, or power level 12 if you have the full squad. Each of them has a special issue bolt gun, standard, a bolt pistol, and frag and crack grenades. So the special issue bolt gun, how is it different from a bolt gun? A bolt gun is range 24, but a special issue bolt gun is range 30, so you get an extra 6 inches of range. Still rapid fire 1, still strength 4. The good thing, or the really good thing that you get with these special issue bolt guns is they're -2 AP, which is very useful. -2 AP is enough to kill orcs, little tyrannid griblies, guardsmen, anything with a 5 or 6 up save that's normally getting saves against bolt guns. This stuff can whittle it down. And it's really, really useful for dealing with small infantry units. Very, very useful at that. Now, I like these guys because they're very cheap too. That's the thing. There are definitely units in the Codex that are better at dealing with infantry. So thinking of things like aggressors, or 4 heavy bolters in a Devastator squad, or a variety of other things. Centurion Devastators with heavy bolters and hurricane bolters. You can get a lot of shots out of those guys, but they can get expensive. Whereas 1 squad equipped standard of Sterngard veterans, let me get an example squad out here for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So a 5-man team will only cost you 70 points, which is quite cheap. So a tactical squad will cost you 60 points. A squad of veterans will cost you 70 points. For the 10 more points, now, you're not troops anymore, it's an elite choice, but you will get the special issue bolt gun for free, because it's free now. It was 2 points before, now it's 0 points. So the special issue bolt gun is free. So just an upgrade on the bolt gun. And then you get the extra attack and the extra point of leadership, which is quite good. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, well, what about intercessors then? You get the -1 AP, the extended range, you get an added wound, more attacks. Why not just take intercessors instead of these guys? Well, for one, these are dirty cheap, 14 points a model. And number 2, should you want to, you have access to a variety of weapons as well. So you kind of get the tactical squad bonus to access equipment while still getting extra attacks and having better bolt guns. So they're quite useful in that way. Now, the cool thing about the Sterngard Veteran Squad is that up to 2 veterans can take 1 heavy weapon and or 1 special weapon. So what you can do is you can take 2 special weapons, you can take 1 special, 1 heavy, 2 heavy weapons, even if you only have a 5-man squad. Whereas a standard tactical Marine squad, for 5 Marines, you can take 1 or the other, 1 special or 1 heavy. And even if you have 10 Marines, you can only take 1 special and 1 heavy. You can't take 2 of either. So you get some serious versatility as well. So as an example, I'll take out 2 of the special issue bolt guns and I will insert 2 plasma guns. So now I've got 2 plasma gunners in a 5-man squad. Now, suddenly, this squad is very good at dealing with armor, and it's still quite cheap. Plasma guns are only 11 points each. So add 22 points onto that 70, and you haven't even broken 100 points yet. So they're quite cheap, and they can be very versatile. Like I said, they're one of the only squads that can take a heavy flamer. So you could take 2 heavy flamers and then have, for example, 3 combi flamers on the other guys, and just have a flamer team if you want. That's right, I forgot to mention that you are able to give every single one a combi weapon instead of their special issue bolt gun. It's worth noting that the combi weapon, the bolter portion, is a standard bolter. So it's not the special issue bolt gun plus either a plasma gun, a flamer, a melta, or a grav gun. It's not. It's a standard bolter. So keep that in mind when you decide to take combi weapons, if you decide to take combi weapons. Personally, I like these guys just having their stock special issue bolt guns and having them very cheap. They're very good at dealing. They can deal with a variety of threats pretty well, which is nice. They can deal in close combat if you need them to, and they can definitely deal in shooting, for sure. And if you lose a squad, it's really not the end of the world. You're losing like 70 points, which is really not that bad. So they can dish out some pain. They're very much like point per point. I think they're very valuable. That's why they're one of my favorites. So the options here, like I mentioned, the sergeant can take 2 things from the sergeant weapons list instead of the bolt pistol or special issue bolt gun, or you can swap out the bolt pistol for something from the sergeant's weapon list. So I highly recommend that you keep the special issue bolt gun and you swap the pistol out with a chainsword, just giving you those extra attacks in close combat while also keeping the special issue bolt gun, which is very good. Now, you could also swap the 2 special weapons, so you could take up to 2 special weapons or 2 heavy weapons or a special and a heavy in any combination that you see fit. So there's a lot of versatility as well. You could take a squad. They wouldn't do bad with a couple of heavy bolters because the heavy bolters and the special issue bolt gun, they share similar range. And they're sort of a similar type of weapon, too. They're very much about clearing out infantry. And that would be pretty cheap as well. Only be 90 points for a squad of 5 with 2 heavy bolters. I mean, you could take anything you want, really. Like, just put whatever you feel together. You could put grav cannons in, actually. The grav cannons would be a pretty cool addition to a Sterngard squad. I'm not sure if there's a limitation, actually. For some reason, I feel like there's a limitation on grav cannons and who can take them. I think it's just because heavy bolters are limited to Sterngard veterans. No, Grav cannon, okay, so they just removed the heavy flamer from the options and then put it in as a war gear option specifically for the Sterngard. Yeah, heavy flamer. Okay, so you could take a grav cannon and a grav amp, and then, or two, and throw those in, and then have a squad that's really good at dealing with heavy infantry. -2 on your bolt guns for the other guys, and then 2 grav cannons. Be quite good. I personally like to have them with plasma guns. I think they really match well with the special issue bolt guns, if I take anything at all. Often I just take the special issue bolt guns and leave it at that, but plasma guns really help. They're similar range. They're similar, they deal with similar targets almost exactly the same, if not better. And they can also hurt bigger things. So you sort of add to the versatility of the squad and you allow them to deal with a variety of targets. So you could direct the whole squad, plasma guns and all, into a squad of, say, Chaos Space Marines. Or you could have the special issue bolt guns firing into a squad of cultists, and then the plasma guns, overcharging and firing into a vehicle of some kind. So you get some serious versatility, and it's still quite cheap. So like I said, 14 points a model, and you're getting all of the special rules that now come with Space Marines. So you're getting reroll morale checks, you're getting the bolter beta rule, which is now no longer a beta rule, it's just a rule, bolter discipline. So if they stay still, they fire 2 shots, even if they're outside of half range. So that's fantastic because they're bolt weapons with the special issue bolt guns. Or the combi bolters as well. If you decide to use those are still bolt guns. And also keep in mind, half range with these guys is 15 inches, not 12, because they are 30 max. Then they're also getting the shock assault rule, which, like I mentioned before, gives them an extra attack on the charge or when they are charged. And they're also getting the tactical doctrines. Now, the one that'll probably be most useful is combat doctrines. The most useful will be the tactical doctrine, which gives a -1 to the AP of rapid fire and assault weapons. Rapid fire weapons are special issue bolt guns or plasma guns, or whatever else you want to add, really, minus a few of the heavy weapons. But you'll be getting a bonus negative to the AP, which means your special issue bolt guns, if you have the tactical doctrine active, will be -3 AP, which will basically be Marine killers. They'll be ideal for killing Marines. Anything with a 4-up armor save gets nothing. And if you have, a Marine equivalent 3-up armor save, it's only on a 6 they're going to save it. So these things can cut through armor. And you get a decent amount of shots too, so it really does add to their versatility. Now, it helps that over the additions and over the chapter approveds and all that, the veteran cost is now only 14 points, where it used to be 16, I think, in the original codex. And the special issue bolt gun used to cost you 2 points. Now they're 14. The special issue bolt gun costs you nothing. And they get all these new rules. And chapter tactics are improved. So, in terms of chapter tactics, what works well with these guys? Just about everything, honestly. Ultramarines, you can back out and shoot. Not a problem. Imperial Fists is an obvious one. You ignore cover with your -2 bolt guns. And because they're bolt weapons, on 6s, you get bonus shots. So Imperial Fists, Sterngard veterans, will be quite good. Salamanders basically works with everything. White Scars, maybe not as much, but they still do okay in close combat, so that might help for advancing and charging, although you probably don't want to forgo your shooting. Raven Guard benefits from cover or being outside of 12 and in a terrain piece for that -1 to hit. That's helpful. They can stand and shoot outside of range. They have that range with 30 inches over bolt guns, which is nice. Iron Hands, I mean, Iron Hands, much like Salamanders, kind of works with everything. You'll be overwatching on fives, which is great for those bolt guns. You'll be ignoring wounds on sixes, which is good for anything, really. The damage to table thing doesn't help you. Again, Black Templars is sort of universal, but also more directed at assault type lists. And then Crimson Fists will actually do pretty well also. You'll get those bolter hits as well as some sneaky business when you target things that have more models than you. And actually, come to think of it, if you've got a squad of, say, 5 of these guys and they want to dump into a giant squad of cultists or of poxwalkers or something that has a huge unit size, they're going to be getting the bonuses of the Crimson Fist chapter tactics. And then we've also got, oh, before I dive into that, the successor chapter tactics, there are a few that sort of jump out that would be good. Adding 3 inches to the range with long range marksman, having 33-inch special issue bolt guns, it could help. Just add to the range. Bolter fusillades, of course, is an obvious one. So with bolt weapons, you can reroll hit rolls of 1. Cool. Yeah, the Master Artisans, again, that's pretty much the Salamander thing. So pretty good there. So these guys are quite good. These guys are quite good with just about any chapter tactics. Obviously not the ones that are more focused on melee, but they'll still get some benefit as they are veterans. They have more attacks. So if you've got ways to get them into combat and attacking first against something that's quite a bit weaker than them, it shouldn't be a problem. That being said, I wouldn't charge a squad of Sterngard veterans into a melee type unit. Don't do that because they're not equipped to deal with that. And I would avoid trying to equip them to deal with that. You could give your sergeant in a Sterngard squad a power weapon of some kind. But I would avoid doing that to try and make them more combat oriented. There are other units for that. That's what Vanguard veterans are for, or a variety of other combat units. These guys can do combat, and that's what's cool about them, but their shooting is really why you want to take Sterngard veterans. The special issue bolt guns, the versatility of choice in terms of weaponry that they can take, because you can take a squad with 5, hell, you can take a squad with 10 combi meltas. That's a lot of points, but you can do it, which is really cool. And with the way drop pods work now, man, if you drop 10 melta guns into into your opponent's face, something or probably some things are going to die. So you've got those options as well. Now, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to give your sergeant a melee weapon other than a chainsword. I've got one squad actually that I like to use, and I give the sergeant a power fist. I just like power fists. I have an attachment to them, but that's just me. But if you gave them like a power sword, so here it's this guy. I give him a power fist, and then I've got his special issue bolt gun there. So I replace his bolt pistol, not the bolt gun. I still want the bolt gun on this guy because it's awesome. And then I gave him a power fist. So with these guys, because he's a sergeant, he's getting 3 attacks. So giving him a melee weapon might not be a bad call. And realistically, if a few of them get whittled down during combat, you're probably not going to take away the sergeant first, or you shouldn't. I mean, you can, and different tactical scenarios mean different things, but typically you should be keeping your sergeant as the last one alive. So if he makes his way into combat, he can hit something with a power fist or a power axe or something like that. Now, power fist is 9 points, so it's a little steep for a 1 wound model, but you get 3 attacks with it and 4 on the charge, which is not bad, which means that suddenly your Sterngard veteran could punch some holes in a tank, which is pretty cool. He'll be strength 8, so he'll be able to punch holes in something anyways. But it wouldn't be a bad call to, say, give a Sterngard veteran a power axe, for example. For 5 points, you get +1 strength, I think. Yeah, +1 strength, -2 AP. Could be helpful. But I like to, if you want to go for the cheapest option and you're trying to get a cheap squad with special issue bolt guns, go with a chainsword every time. Replace that bolt pistol. I've got 2 of them equipped like that, actually, with chainswords and special issue bolt guns. So as long as you show your work, just like math class used to be, so make sure you've got the chainsword and you've got the bolt gun in the other hand, and maybe you've done some. So I've given this guy like a little laser sight on the side of his bolt gun. So that makes it special issue, if you will. So yes, there's also one stratagem. This one is a carryover from the previous codex, so it's not new, but it's still quite good. And it's specific to special issue bolt guns on Sterngard veterans. So let's see, where is it? Masterful marksmanship. So for 1 command point, use this stratagem when a Sterngard veteran squad unit from your army fires Overwatch or is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack with the special issue bolt gun by a model in that unit, add 1 to the wound roll. That's very, very powerful because it's not adding 1 to the strength. It's adding 1 to the wound roll, which is so much more if you think about it. So let's see. We have got a Sterngard veteran with a special issue bolt gun. And let's say we've got a Rhino transport. So I've got this Rhino and this Sterngard veteran and his Sterngard buddies. Let's say there's a squad. They want to shoot at this Rhino for whatever reason you want to shoot at the Rhino. Maybe it's on an objective, maybe you need to get it off that objective, or maybe this guy's been harassing you all game and you just want to mess him up. So, normally, strength 4, toughness 7. You'd be wounding this guy on 5s. But with the stratagem, you'd be wounding him on 4s. Now, if you only added to the strength of the weapon would be 5, this would still be toughness 7, you'd still be wounding on 5s. Even if you added 2 to the strength to make it strength 6, you would still be wounding on 5s. But by adding 1 to the wound roll, you're basically adding several layers of things that you can now damage more effectively. So this works even better for light infantry. If you've got something that's toughness 4, you would normally wound on 4s, now you wound on 3s. And if you've got something that's toughness 3 or below, you would normally wound on 3s, but with the stratagem, you would wound on 2s. So that's really where it pays off, is when you're dealing with light infantry. Anything toughness 4, much better if it's 3. If you have toughness 3, that would be fantastic. If you're shooting at a squad of guardsmen or gaunts or something, you can wound them on 2s. You're punching right through their armor. Those guys are dead. They're dead. So you hit like a Space Marine hits, which is pretty reliably, and then you wound on 2s, and it's not just wounding on 2s, you kill them on 2s. Barring some sort of invulnerable save or ignoring wound mechanic, if they're simply relying on armor and numbers, you kill on 2s, which is very, very useful. So, finally, in closing, I guess, Sterngard veterans are very adaptable to a variety of scenarios, but they excel at dealing with light infantry. They can do a lot of things very well. That's sort of they can do a lot of things well, not very well. That is sort of the Space Marine thing, but they really exemplify it in that they can do close combat and they can dish out quite a few attacks because of their veteran profile. You're not going to lose guys if you have a huge squad because their leadership's very high. They're very cheap. Their bolt guns are just better and ignore AP. And they have access to a lot of different weapons in some interesting and unique combinations, like the 2 the two special weapons or the two heavy weapons or something along those lines. So you get a variety of options. I would recommend keeping it cheap to keep them worth the points really, and not just sort of deck everybody out with tons of gear. But at the same time, like it could be your strategy to send 5 Sterngard veterans in a drop pod with combi meltas and just let them cook something. And if you're okay with that squad being targeted immediately after, hey man, no problem. If if you nuke a tank with that, that's great, right? So it's up to you, but I highly recommend keeping them with the special issue bolt guns, maybe a plasma gun here or there, and sergeants with chain swords are fantastic. Maybe a close combat weapon, but try and keep it cheap, and you'll find they're a very, very useful unit. And even if you lose them, it's not the end of the world because they don't cost you many points, honestly. And that's another one of the big reasons I recommend not buying the Sterngard kit, is because it might be useful to have quite a few of them. So if you can find a way to purchase cheap marine bodies to be able to customize and turn into your own Sterngard veteran squad, you could have a lot of fun. Like regular infantry, they can fit inside rhinos, razorbacks, storm ravens, any type of land raider, drop pods, because they are regular infantry. They have access to drop pods. I've had actually some pretty good success dropping down a pod of 10 Sterngard veterans just with the special issue bolt guns and melting infantry in one area of the field. So if I don't want to dedicate some firepower that's already on the table, I can drop a pod in and deal some serious damage. And a drop pod with 10 Sterngard veterans, all with special issue bolt guns, is just over 200 points. It's quite cheap. You get 10 guys and the pod and their special issue bolt guns for 205 points. So lots of options there, lots of things you can do. Ride them up in a rhino. Hell, sit them on an objective somewhere within your deployment zone and have them shoot out. Drop them in a pod, whatever. Anyhow, thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.